The presidents who shaped American history. Empires and legends. The United States is a young nation with a history of just under 150 years. Yet it has quickly risen to become one of the most powerful countries in the world. This incredible journey would not have been possible without exceptional individuals, brilliant minds with vision and courage, who guided the nation through immense challenges. Among all leadership positions, the role of president stands above the rest. It doesn't just represent power. It reflects the dreams, hopes, and ideals of the American people. The success or failure of any presidential term is shaped by crisis and circumstance, by the weight of the past and the vision for the future. Across 46 presidencies, 45 remarkable individuals have left their mark on the United States and its extraordinary rise. In this episode, join empires and legends as we explore the lives of 4 iconic U.S. presidents who defined the course of the nation. George Washington. On April 30th, 1789, Revolutionary War hero George Washington took the oath of office and became the first president of the United States. At that time, most nations were ruled by monarchs. But the framers of the U.S. Constitution chose democracy, and with it, created the office of president, the first such role of its kind in the modern world. Most delegates feared centralized power. They wanted Congress to hold more authority than the president. In this context, Washington stood out because everyone knew he did not seek power for himself. After leading the colonies to victory, he had voluntarily resigned as commander-in-chief and disbanded the army. That act alone made him the ideal figure to become the republic's first leader. As the first president, nearly every decision Washington made became a precedent. He created the cabinet, building a foundation for future administrations. Instead of surrounding himself with loyalists, he chose the most capable minds of the era. Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State; Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury; Henry Knox, Secretary of War; Edmund Randolph, Attorney General. Washington also clarified the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, keeping them independent, preventing abuse of power. He used his veto power only twice, first in 1792 over congressional seat distribution, and again in 1794 concerning military matters. In 1794, he faced the Whiskey Rebellion in western Pennsylvania. Farmers refused to pay a federal tax. Instead of resorting to violence, Washington personally led 12,000 troops to the region, not to crush the rebellion, but to defuse it peacefully. Not a single shot was fired. Washington had upheld the authority of the federal government without becoming a tyrant. In foreign policy, he showed similar wisdom. In 1793, he kept the U.S. neutral during the war between Britain and France. Though criticized, this decision protected the fledgling nation and established a long-standing U.S. policy: stay out of European conflicts. But Washington's greatest legacy was how he walked away from power. In 1796, after 2 terms, he refused a third and retired. This decision helped preserve the democratic structure of the presidency. For 144 years, every president honored that tradition, with only one exception, which we'll discuss later. To this day, George Washington is honored as the father of the nation. His face appears on the $1 bill and the quarter coin. The U.S. Capitol bears his name, Washington, D.C. The president who doubled America. Known as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president of the United States, following Washington and John Adams. After a tense election in 1800, Jefferson became the first president inaugurated in Washington, D.C. His top priority was to strengthen the nation's economy. He cut government spending and reduced national debt by scaling back the military. But his most historic achievement came in 1803, the Louisiana Purchase. For $15 million, Jefferson bought a vast territory from France, doubling the size of the United States. The land acquired west of the Mississippi, over 820,000 square miles, would become the heartland of America, rich in farmland, forests, and minerals. This deal turned the U.S. into a rising economic and geopolitical force, but it came at a cost. As agriculture expanded, so did the need for enslaved labor. The divide between North and South deepened, paving the way for the Civil War. During his second term, Jefferson tried to keep the U.S. neutral in the Napoleonic Wars. But British and French ships harassed American merchants. In response, Jefferson passed the Embargo Act of 1807, shutting down U.S. trade. The act backfired. It hurt the American economy and sparked outrage. Though the law was repealed before Jefferson left office in 1809, it remains one of his greatest missteps. Still, Thomas Jefferson is remembered as a visionary. His legacy is carved into Mount Rushmore alongside Washington, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. Abraham Lincoln, the President of Freedom and Union. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, rose to prominence in 1858 during debates over slavery with Senator Stephen Douglas. He won the presidency in 1860 as the first Republican president. But his election triggered the secession of Southern states, leading to the Civil War. During America's darkest hour, Lincoln's leadership held the Union together. His most iconic act, the Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, which redefined the war as a fight for freedom and turned the Union Army into a force of liberation. He later helped pass the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery nationwide. On November 19, 1863, Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address, just 272 words, at a cemetery dedication. This short speech became one of the most powerful expressions of democracy in American history. After the war, Lincoln sought to reunify the nation. He supported the Pacific Railway Act, laying the groundwork for the Transcontinental Railroad, connecting East and West. But Lincoln did not live to see the results. On April 14, 1865, just days after the war ended, he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a Southern sympathizer at Ford's Theater. His death shocked the nation. Starting April 21, 1865, a special funeral train carried his body through 180 cities and 7 states, ending in Illinois. It became one of the largest public mourning events in U.S. history. To this day, many wonder, what if Lincoln had lived? Would reconciliation have been smoother? Would racism have ended sooner? We'll never know. But what we do know is that Lincoln gave his life to preserve the Union and free a people. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 4-term president. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, served an unprecedented 4 terms, leading the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. Born into wealth, he followed the path of his cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, a former president. He entered politics as a Democrat. Then, tragedy struck. In 1921, at age 39, Roosevelt was paralyzed by polio. But with the help of his wife, Eleanor, he refused to give up. After nearly a decade of recovery, he won the presidency in 1932. In his inaugural speech, Roosevelt declared, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." At the time, 25% of Americans were unemployed, banks had collapsed, and millions were homeless. Within his first 100 days, Roosevelt passed sweeping reforms through Congress. He spoke directly to the people through fireside chats, radio broadcasts that reached over 60 million listeners. This helped restore public confidence. His signature program, the New Deal, provided jobs, relief for farmers and workers, reforms to stabilize the economy. By 1936, the economy was improving, and Roosevelt won re-election by a landslide. But support for the New Deal began to wane in his second term. Then came a global crisis. World War II broke out in 1939. FDR ran for a 3rd term, breaking the 2-term precedent because the nation needed stability. In 1940, he was re-elected again. Then, on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. America joined the war. Under Roosevelt's leadership, the U.S. became the backbone of the Allied forces. In 1944, he won a 4th term, but did not live to see victory. On April 12, 1945, Roosevelt died of a brain hemorrhage, just months before the war ended in Europe. Yet his legacy endures. He is remembered as one of the greatest U.S. presidents, the man who led the nation through crisis after crisis. As biographer Gene Edward Smith wrote, He lifted himself from his wheelchair to lift the nation from its knees. These four presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt, shaped the very soul of America. Which one inspires you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from history. See you in the next video. Empires and Legends.